I'm Piper Nelson, 27, an accountant living in Atlanta, stuck in a household that never saw my value. My parents always chose one favorite child, and that person was never me. At every gathering, they'd raise their glasses, smiles polished, voices dripping with sweetness that masked the sting underneath. One daughter they admired, the other me, just filling the background. My sister received it all, a $300,000 condo, extravagant trips, and an endless chorus of their praise. I, on the other hand, was cornered into taking a $15,000 loan to erase her student debt, a burden whose interest quietly strangled my savings as I spent long nights surrounded by spreadsheets and deadlines. Even when I earned a promotion, a corner office, a clear upward path, they didn't notice. A $200 or $500 designer coat for my sister deserved champagne and celebration. Every contrast between us etched the same message into me: I'd never measure up in their world. But I wasn't collapsing, I was strategizing. Each hidden dollar I saved became a brick in the road to independence, a life 3,000 miles away in Boston, out of their reach. Before we dive in, drop a comment below. Tell me your city and the time where you are. I love seeing how many places and time zones this story travels to. Each bit of money I tucked away felt like breathing space. At the bank, pen poised, I signed the paperwork for Tabitha's student loan. The loan officer glanced at me, puzzled, but I stayed steady. The $12,000 left on that account came from her missed classes and failed business attempts. Yet my parents called it helping family. My own budget was already tight, my small apartment barely covered, and still I was the one expected to carry the weight of her choices. Each month, $450 vanished from my paycheck, a constant reminder of the debt that chained me to their expectations. I clenched my jaw, fully aware they'd never ask Tabitha to pay a cent back. At 30, she paraded through Atlanta's upscale boutiques, spending thousands on silk gowns and imported handbags as if money grew on admiration. Her newest splurge, a $3,000 pair of heels, gleamed across her social feed under the caption "Living My Best Life." Mom called her hardworking. Dad admired her ambition, as though my 60-hour weeks meant nothing at all. They'd gather at dinner, praising her lavish taste, while I sat quietly, my effort and discipline erased by their blindness. What they called drive was nothing but illusion, a lifestyle propped up by my sacrifices. Meanwhile, at the firm, I'd been pouring every ounce of focus into my job. Just last month, my manager summoned me into her office, a rare smile softening her usual composure. "Piper, you're being promoted, and there's a raise," she said. I'd restructured a client's tax plan that saved them millions, and the partners had taken notice. I left that office with my chest lifted high, convinced that maybe this time my parents would finally notice me. I couldn't have been more mistaken. Over coffee, I shared the news, waiting for even a flicker of pride. Dad merely scoffed. "That's nice, but Tabitha's about to close a major deal for her boutique." Mom chimed in. "She's really going places, Piper. You could learn from her." Their words landed like blows. Years of work, long nights, endless sacrifice, dismissed in a heartbeat. Later, I overheard them on the phone with her, their voices glowing with affection. "You're doing amazing," Mom said. "We just need Piper to step up like you." Step up. The phrase echoed like an insult. I was already sinking under their expectations, draining my own savings to prop up Tabitha's failures, while they called her their success story. Then came Dad's voice, sharp and certain. "Piper needs to contribute more to this family." Contribute more? I'd already given them everything: my money, my energy, my dignity. Their favoritism wasn't just cruel, it was betrayal. That night, I sat on my worn couch, staring at the loan documents bearing my signature, a symbol of how tightly they still held me. I wasn't going to be their safety net anymore. Opening my laptop, I started browsing jobs in Boston. The skyline photos on the listings looked like freedom itself. Firms were hiring senior accountants, salaries around $95,000, enough to afford a modest one-bedroom in Back Bay. I crunched the numbers. $2,800 for rent, $200 for utilities, $400 for insurance. Tight, but doable. I'd already been secretly saving $300 a month in an account they didn't know existed, small but sacred, untouched by their influence. I mapped out neighborhoods, Beacon Hill, South End, tracing the life I could finally claim as mine. Every resume I revised felt like an act of defiance. I tailored each line, my new title, the tax systems I'd improved, my calm under pressure. One listing caught my breath, a mid-sized Boston firm offering $95,000 a year, full benefits, and a direct track to partnership. I spent hours perfecting my cover letter, my hands trembling with resolve. This wasn't just another career move, it was my escape route. I could see it so clearly, a bright office, my name on the door, no more comparisons to Tabitha. But doubt whispered, what if they found out? Mom always had a sixth sense for my independence, her guilt-laced voice ready to pounce. Family comes first, Piper. Dad would echo her, with his endless lectures about duty and obligation. I shoved the thoughts away and focused on what mattered, the numbers, the distance, the promise of a life 3,000 miles from their reach. I totaled up the cost of leaving, about $1,500 for the moving truck and another $500 for deposits. My savings were building slowly, but I still needed more time and more cash, so I started trimming every expense I could, canceled subscriptions, skipped restaurant meals, even sold an old chair online for $50. Each tiny sacrifice felt like rebellion, one more stone in the wall I was stacking between their control and my freedom. Then Tabitha's latest post lit up my screen, her, champagne in hand at a rooftop bar, captioned, "Chasing Dreams." Mom's comment sat beneath it. So proud. I swiped it away, jaw tight. Her so-called dreams were still fueled by my sacrifices, but not for much longer. I reached out to a realtor in Boston. She sent me listings, tiny studios, modest but perfect for a restart. I tucked every email and link into a folder labeled taxes, just in case Mom ever poked around my laptop. My plan was finally solidifying. Not just escape, but transformation. Then the call came, a recruiter from the Boston firm. Her voice was confident, precise. "Your background really stands out, Piper. We're impressed with your tax results. For the first time in months, someone actually saw my worth." I ended the call trembling, exhilarated, and immediately transferred another $100 into my hidden account. Boston was no longer a faraway hope. It had a clock ticking beside it. Then came the night that changed everything. My parents' 35th anniversary party, a glittering showcase of Atlanta's finest. The house overflowed with family friends, old colleagues, people who'd known us for decades. I arrived in a simple black dress, understated but elegant. It didn't matter. The attention orbited around Tabitha, dazzling in her sequined gown, her laughter rising above the chatter like a performance. I lingered near the back, clutching my glass, invisible in plain sight. Dad, Mark, took the microphone, tall and assured as always. "Here's to 35 years," he began warmly, "and to family." Mom, Barbara, smiled beside him, her expression polished, her eyes scanning the crowd. Then his tone shifted. "Some kids make you proud," he said, pausing to glance toward Tabitha. "Others just take up space." The room erupted in uneasy laughter. Tabitha's lips curled into a satisfied smirk, her eyes meeting mine, glittering with triumph. The air felt heavy, everyone's gaze cutting into me like heat. I could have swallowed it like before, buried the humiliation, stayed quiet, but not this time. I placed my glass down, the clink sharp enough to silence a few nearby conversations. "Good thing I've already got my own place," I said, my voice steady and clear. 3,000 miles away. The words sliced through the room. "From now on," I continued, "the rent, the bills, the insurance, all of it's yours." The chatter died instantly. Dad's hand froze mid-toast, his jaw tightening. The power in the room shifted, for once in my direction. Barbara's smile froze, her hand instinctively rising to her necklace. Tabitha's smug expression flickered, her eyes narrowing into slits. I didn't wait to see the rest. My heels clicked against the floor as I turned, each step away from that table loosening years of invisible chains. The rush that followed was pure freedom, a feeling I hadn't tasted in so long. Behind me, the murmurs began, first a whisper, then a rising tide. "Did she just say?" One guest gasped. "They finally pushed her too far," another murmured, voice low but edged with truth. Snippets reached me as I crossed the room. Ungrateful, cruel, she's right. The air itself seemed to tremble, polite masks slipping as judgment turned toward them instead of me. I brushed past a cousin whose eyes were wide with disbelief and an old family friend who suddenly couldn't meet my gaze. They'd all seen it, the favoritism, the cruelty, the years I'd swallowed in silence. At the edge of the room, I stopped just long enough to breathe, my chest lifting. For once, I wasn't the one shrinking to fit. "Piper, get back here," Mark's voice cracked behind me, the authority in it slipping. Too late. I'd already said everything that needed to be said. Barbara's chair scraped loudly as she stood, my name hissing from her lips. I didn't turn around. Tabitha, for once, had no comeback. Her silence said it all. I was done carrying their weight, their debts, their pity, their disappointment. None of it was mine anymore. Around me, the whispers grew sharper, pity mingling with anger. "How could they say that to her?" a woman whispered. "She's been supporting them," another replied, her tone cutting. I caught sight of an older couple shaking their heads, their champagne untouched. My parents' flawless celebration was crumbling, their reputation cracking right there in front of their cherished audience. I didn't need to look back to know their perfect facade had shattered. My words had done what years of silence never could, exposed them. Outside, the night air was cool against my face. My breathing steadied. The noise, the judgment, their control, it all fell away. I hadn't just left a party. I'd left their grip entirely. They'd mocked me one too many times, and now I'd turned their spotlight into my own stage. The laughter behind me faded as I stepped into the dark, already halfway to Boston in my mind. A week later, Betrayal arrived through my phone. Tabitha's post appeared, her words poisonous beneath a smiling photo. "Some people think they're better than family," she wrote, "selfish, ungrateful, tearing us apart." She twisted the truth into a pity story, painting me as the heartless daughter who abandoned her parents in shame. The comments rolled in fast, friends calling me cold, disloyal, a disgrace to the Nelson name. I stared at the falsehoods, hands shaking. She warped my stand into her storyline, and people bought it. I wanted to clap back and list the years she lived off me, but I held my tongue. Her bait was obvious, and I refused to bite. The next morning, an envelope slid under my door. Mom's careful script covered the page. "Piper, your actions at the party were unacceptable," it began. "You owe us an apology to keep this family together." The letter was guilt-packaged as concern, full of phrases like family harmony and your duty. No mention of her own cruelty, or Dad's, or how they mocked me before a room full of guests. I folded it, jaw tight, and dropped it in a drawer. I wasn't apologizing. Not now, not ever. I needed a voice of reason. I met Clara, a coworker, at a cafe that afternoon and unloaded everything. The party, Tabitha's post, Mom's letter. Clara listened, steady and silent. When I finished, she said, "You did the right thing. They're trying to control you. Don't let them." Her words anchored me to my decision. She reminded me of my backbone, my plan, my value. "Boston's waiting," she added, warm and sure. "You're bigger than their drama." I nodded, resolve locking in. Her support was the nudge I needed to keep moving. That evening, my phone buzzed again. Rose, my cousin, texted, "Heard you're moving to Boston. What's the deal?" The tone felt probing, not friendly. She skipped the party and the post, asking about my plans with a faint edge. "Big move. You sure about this?" I answered vaguely. "Just need a change." She didn't press, and I didn't expect her to. She wasn't with me. She was observing. Meanwhile, Tabitha's post kept snowballing, her followers piling on. "How could she do that to her parents?" one commented. "Spoiled brat," another added. The jabs hurt, but I refused to jump in. That arena was theirs, not mine. I opened Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and hit delete. The apps disappeared, and so did the noise. I felt lighter, free of their distortions. I didn't need their approval to breathe. With the online clutter gone, I focused on the move. My Boston folder was packed with notes. A fresh email from the realtor confirmed a South End studio at $2,600 a month, utilities separate. I had it all mapped out, my savings just enough to cover the deposit for the apartment. The Boston firm had scheduled a second interview, this time in person. I booked a round-trip flight for $250 and began listing my furniture. My couch sold for $100, the TV for $75. Each sale felt like progress, each one a step closer to severing the ties. Nights were spent packing, sorting through years of memories, old photos, letters, keepsakes. Each one felt like an anchor to a life I was leaving behind. I kept only the essentials: clothes, my laptop, a few books. The rest went into boxes for donation or sale. What used to be a safe haven, my apartment now felt temporary, a transition to something far better. I contacted my landlord to confirm the lease would end in 2 months. Signing the paperwork felt like a quiet but definite declaration of independence. Later that week, Clara texted to check in. "You okay?" I smiled, grateful for her genuine concern. "Better than ever," I replied. Her support was a reminder that I wasn't truly alone, even if my family had abandoned me. I didn't need Rose's approval or Tabitha's lies. I didn't need Mum's guilt trips either. I was building a future on my own terms. I checked my savings, $4,200, enough for the move if I stayed disciplined. I added $200 more from a side gig, auditing a small business's books. Every dollar was crucial, every one a brick in the wall separating me from Atlanta. Tabitha's posts, Mom's letter, all just noise, not my truth. I wasn't the selfish one. I was breaking free. 6 weeks later, Tabitha's world started to fall apart. I was packing the last of my boxes when my phone buzzed. Tabitha's name flashed on the screen. A rarity. "I need to talk," her text read, short and desperate. I hesitated, fingers hovering. After the lies she spread online and her cold silence at the party, I owed her nothing. But curiosity gnawed at me. She asked to meet at her apartment, and against my better judgment, I agreed. Her place was a disaster. Empty wine bottles, overdue bills scattered on the counter. The boutique she'd flaunted for so long was done. "It's gone," she said, voice flat. "The store's bankrupt. I'm drowning in debt." She looked at me, eyes pleading. "I need help, Piper. I can't make it on my own." I stood there, speechless. This was the same woman who had spent years bragging about her success, running up $20,000 in credit card debt on designer clothes and lavish parties. And now she was asking for my savings, the money I'd fought for, scrimped, and saved to get to Boston. I didn't say no right away. Instead, I offered to help clean up, hoping it might give me some insight into her. We dug through the mess. Boxes of unsold inventory, receipts for $4,000 bar tabs, notices from creditors. As we worked, I waited for some sign of remorse, a hint of regret for how she'd treated me, but it never came. "You've always had it easy," she muttered, tossing a dress into a pile. "No one expected anything from you." Her words hit like a slap, as if the years of covering her mistakes meant nothing. She still saw me as the lesser sister, even now. My patience was wearing thin as I pushed a stack of papers aside. "You think I had it easy?" I asked, my voice sharp. "I paid for your mistakes, Tabitha. Years of loans, sleepless nights, all while she played the role of the star." She froze, her hands clutching a box. For the first time, her mask slipped. "I was jealous," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You always had your life together, your job, your plans. I didn't know how to keep up." Her words hit hard, not because I felt sorry for her, but because it was the first real thing she'd ever said. But honesty wasn't enough. "You never said sorry," I pointed out, folding my arms. Not for the party, not for your posts, not for any of it. She looked away, jaw clenched, unable to face what she'd done. I saw it then. Tabitha wasn't ready to change. She wanted a bailout, not a reckoning. I took a steadying breath, my decision firm. I'm not helping you this time, I said. You need to figure this out. Stand on your own 2 feet, like I had to. Her eyes widened, a mix of shock and anger. You're abandoning me, she snapped. I shook my head. I'm not abandoning you. I'm choosing myself. I grabbed my jacket, the weight of her expectations lifting off my shoulders. She called after me, her voice breaking, but I didn't stop. I'd spent years fixing her messes, and I was done. Back at my apartment, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes labeled for Boston. My flight was in 2 days. My new job had confirmed a senior accountant position with a $97,000 salary. I'd signed the lease for a studio in South End, $2,700 a month. My savings were stretched, but enough to get me started. Tabitha's plea still echoed in my mind, but it didn't waver me. Her collapse wasn't my fault, and her debts weren't my responsibility anymore. I thought about her confession, that rare moment of vulnerability. It didn't change who she was, someone who'd mocked me, leaned on me, then blamed me, but it gave me clarity. I wasn't escaping from Tabitha, or Mom, or Dad. I was moving toward something better, a life where my value came from me alone. Boston wasn't just a destination. It was freedom, a place to build something untouched by their shadows. 2 months after that disastrous party, their panic began to show. As I sorted through emails, one from Dad appeared with a blunt subject line, "Your actions." His message was cold, full of accusations about loyalty and family honor. "You walked out on us," he wrote, embarrassing our name in front of everyone. Not a single mention of his own cruelty that night, of how he'd called me a burden. Instead, he demanded I apologize, as though standing up for myself was a crime. I read it once, felt my stomach twist, and then deleted it. His guilt could no longer touch me. A few days later came a knock at the door. Mom stood there, pale and trembling. "Piper, we need to fix this," she said, her voice cracking. "Come back, please. We can heal as a family." Her words sounded tender, but they carried the same old manipulation. There was no remorse for their mockery or years of favoritism, just fear of losing control. I steadied myself, one hand on the doorframe. "There's nothing to fix," I said quietly. "I'm done carrying your expectations." She gasped, stepping back, but I closed the door. Her tears came too late. That same week, real change arrived. An email from the Boston firm glowed on my screen, a confirmed offer. Senior accountant, $98,000 a year, full benefits, and a signing bonus. My pulse raced. This was it, the doorway to the life I'd fought for. I accepted immediately, hands steady as I typed my reply. Boston wasn't a dream anymore. It was happening. Clara showed up that evening, a steady presence with her laptop open, and a plan in mind. "Let's make this airtight," she said, her tone calm but encouraging. Together we polished my paperwork, updated my resume to emphasize leadership, audits, and client management. We sketched out my relocation timeline, one-way flight next week, $280, movers booked for $1,200. Her confidence steadied me. "You're going to thrive up there," she said with a smile. I smiled back, grateful for her faith. Then I looked around my half-empty apartment, the place that had seen all my struggle and endurance. I sold the dining table for $150, the bed frame for $200. Each transaction felt like cutting one more thread to my old life. The Boston fund hit $5,000. I listed the last few things, a lamp for $40, a rug for $80, and watched as buyers came and went, their payments stacking in my account. When I met my landlord to finalize the lease termination, he glanced at the papers and said, almost admiringly, "You're really doing this." I handed him the keys and smiled. "Yes," I said, "I really am. I've been ready for this for a long time, I told Clara when she stopped by again, coffee in one hand and a detailed checklist in the other. Together, we mapped out everything. The first week in Boston, moving into my apartment, setting up utilities, reporting for orientation at the firm. She helped me plan a budget for the first month. $2,900 for rent and bills, $500 for groceries and transport. Every figure was precise, every contingency covered. "Don't let them drag you back," she warned, her tone firm. I promised I wouldn't. Their chaos, Dad's harsh email, Mom's pleading visit, already felt distant, like echoes from a story I'd stopped believing in. I sealed my final box, just clothes and essentials. My laptop, holding my offer letter and lease agreement, had become my most valuable possession. The rest, old books, kitchenware, went to donation bins. 2 suitcases would be enough. This wasn't just relocation. It was release. Every item I left behind lightened me. Their guilt, their scorn, all background noise now. The night before my flight, I walked through the empty apartment one last time. Bare walls, no memories I wanted to keep. Relief replaced nostalgia. After years of bending under their expectations, I was finally stepping out from their shadow. Clara texted, "You ready for tomorrow?" "Better than ready," I replied. Her faith in me made it all feel real. The next morning, I boarded my flight, 2 suitcases tucked away, savings secure. Boston waited 3,000 miles ahead, a city where I'd define success on my own terms. Mom and Dad could cling to their version of family. I was building one built on self-respect, not sacrifice. As the plane rose, Atlanta shrank into distance. I wasn't running anymore. I was finally arriving. When I unlocked the door to my Boston studio, the keys jingled like an anthem. The place was small, bare walls, one window overlooking South End's brick streets, but it was wholly mine. The first day at the firm came fast. Introductions, desk setup, diving into new accounts. The $98,000 salary wasn't just money. It was proof that all my effort had meant something. Every paycheck would carry a piece of my freedom. That evening, walking home through crisp New England air, I smiled for the first time in months. This life was mine, every bit of it. Back in Atlanta, the news trickled in. Tabitha had sold her condo, her prize symbol of success, to pay her debts. She was back under Mom and Dad's roof, her designer wardrobe traded for borrowed space. The boutique's collapse was the talk of the city, her name now paired with gossip and ruin. I didn't feel triumphant, just free. Her downfall wasn't my victory. It was confirmation. Her illusion had shattered, and mine had finally begun. Dad and Mom weren't spared from consequence. Word of their cruelty at the anniversary party, the public humiliation, the blatant favoritism, spread quickly beyond their inner circle. Friends who once flocked to their galas and dinners began keeping their distance. The invitations stopped. Their carefully crafted reputation, polished over decades of charm and manipulation, started to decay. Through a mutual acquaintance, I learned that Dad's business partners were questioning his reliability, while whispers followed Mom at her charity board meetings. Talk of bias, unfair treatment, arrogance. The image they'd built on control and perfection was collapsing under the weight of their own truth. One evening, my phone lit up with Mom's name. Her voice trembled, begging me to come back, to help restore the family. It was the same tired plea wrapped in guilt. I listened for a few seconds, calm and detached, then hung up and blocked her number. Dad's too. Their voices no longer had a claim on me. I'd already given them everything. My loyalty, my savings, my silence. They'd taken enough. Now, in Boston, I finally had peace. My weekends filled with small joys. Quiet mornings in local cafes, hours lost among shelves in Beacon Hill bookstores, long walks through Newbury Street as autumn settled in. My days belonged to my work, demanding, fulfilling, entirely mine. I lived modestly, careful with rent and groceries, but each decision felt deliberate, chosen, not coerced. No comparisons, no expectations, no invisible debts. For the first time, my life matched my values: effort, integrity, independence. Leaving that toxic orbit wasn't escape, it was survival. It was truth. Thanks for staying with me through my story. Now I'm curious. What about you? Have you ever faced a family storm and had to step away to find yourself again?